This presentation is regarding the Cambridge Fire and EMS Commission and the future facility. My name is Devin Flanagan. I'm with Keller. Typically, these presentations would be done in person at the different municipalities, but due to COVID-19, they will be streamed online for each municipality and they will be available on YouTube. The goal of this presentation is to inform the community on a little bit about the history of this project, the problems the fire and EMS are facing in their existing facility, some of the solutions that we've come up with, and we will wrap it up with the timeline where we are currently at and a little bit with the roadmap ahead, as well as looking at overall costs of the project. A little bit about Keller. We're an employee-owned company, about 260 employees. We've got offices in the Fox Cities, Wausau, Madison, and Milwaukee area. We were brought on by the Cambridge Fire and EMS Commission to be the architect and construction manager for the project. The team, myself, Devin Flanagan, we've got Rob Lindstrom, architect, Rebecca, interior designer, superintendent, estimators, and a safety director, along with many others who are in the background. A couple projects we've done when you're looking at fire and EMS stations, not every company is building them every single day, but to just go over a brief summary of a few stations we're involved with or have completed in the past. City of Fort Atkinson, that is currently under construction. It started in April of 2020. It's about a 23,000 square foot fire and EMS facility with some full-time and volunteer. Iron Ridge was recently completed, I think a couple years ago. That is a 12,000 square foot volunteer fire station only. Cascade, 12,000 again. Fire station only for volunteer. That is currently under construction, broke ground in April of this year. The City of Toma, this is full-time fire and full-time EMS station, about 35,000 square feet. That is currently in the design phase. Bailey's Harbor up in the Door County area, currently under construction. That broke ground in April of this year, about 15,000 square feet, fire only. The Brussels Union Gardner, known as Bug Fire and EMS Facility, this is station number 1, 18,000 square feet. That was completed, I believe, 2 years ago, as well as a small expansion and remodel out of the Bug station number 2. And another project that's currently under construction this year broke ground in June, 15,000 square foot fire and EMS station in the town of Freedom. So let's talk about your projects. Currently, the fire and EMS station is here with the white roof. You can see the cursor over it. This is the apparatus bay where all the trucks, and then we go into the office, meeting area, and bathrooms with the EMS apparatus bay over here. In recent past, Cambridge Fire and EMS acquired this parcel with an existing building and a house behind it. The intent of this parcel is to utilize it for a future addition. So in order to find out more about the project, myself and the licensed Keller Architects sat down with the building committee for the Cambridge Fire EMS to go through their needs. So what this is an interview process. It takes multitude of meetings, a lot of research, and dives into every single room in the facility and every single current need, as well as looking at future needs. So before we get into that, every project that I'm a part of always starts with a project goal. So the project goal for this project was, How can we create a solution to solve the problem of our current aging facility in the most economical manner? Really, we want to use the idea for the most bang for our buck. So when we look at the existing facility, and I'll take some time here to go through some of the concerns. I know in the near future there will be tours. Typically, you would have tours of the facility with community engagement meetings actually at the facility to help people see. But again, due to COVID-19, that's going to be extremely difficult for the upcoming months. Hopefully in early next year that will be possible, if not sooner. So the existing facility was built in 1984. Handful of concerns, but before we get into that, the goals of the discussed facility through the needs assessment were increasing the size of the building to create a safe and productive space, increase the size and height of the bays in the apparatus to accommodate the vehicle size, accommodate all vehicles and equipment in a single facility rather than not multiple facilities like it currently is, provide safe area for turnout gear, which would not be located in the apparatus bay, include living quarters, increase office to accommodate more personnel at one time, and create sufficient storage space to meet the needs. The existing facility was designed to house a smaller department with smaller and fewer pieces of equipment. The lack of space has created inefficiencies and safety concerns for staff, as well as congestion in the apparatus bay. Some of the problems that we have are the following. The turnout gear area is currently located in the apparatus bay. The problem with that is the carcinogens that are in the apparatus bay from different vehicles contaminate all the equipment that those fire and EMS then put on when they go respond to a call. Currently in the facility, there are no living quarters. EMS has people located in an apartment nearby, so that creates a concern with response time and other safety issues with trying to go back and forth from the apartment to the facility. Ventilation. Because it was built in 1984, there was a lot of things that were not common knowledge back then as far as the ventilation for the turnout gear itself. Because when fire and EMS respond to calls, especially with fire, the products that are used in cars and homes today are a lot different than they were in the 80s. And when they leave a call, then they are then taking all those carcinogens back with them. So in order to keep those volunteers safe, that ventilation is critical. There are environmental concerns as well. So again, when we're looking at the different materials that are used today rather than 84, there are pretty substantial concerns with keeping the existing facility sanitary and safe, especially now that we're looking at things like COVID-19 that's critical for the safety. Space constraints are everywhere in the facility, from the apparatus bay to storage spaces to office spaces to the bathrooms to the training room. There's not much room in the space for anything. And really every space from our perspective doing fire and EMS facilities, there's just no space. This has been looked at, and we'll get into the timeline, but this has been looked at for years and it's well overdue from my perspective. We're looking at the generator. We want this facility to be an EOC, so Emergency Operations Center. We want to make sure that everything is updated, that if there is a traumatic event, that this facility will be operational for the safety of the communities. Overall safety, I think this is the biggest driving point for the facility. We're looking at the safety of those who are in the apparatus bay. We're looking at the safety from the sanitation perspective. We're looking at the overall safety from every perspective, and currently the existing building is lacking in many different areas. Gender. We want to make sure that all people are valued and have an equal and fair opportunity to be a part of the Cambridge and Fire and EMS. So those are some of the concerns that we've had. So now, as I mentioned earlier, we're looking at the needs assessment. This is an interview process to go through all the needs. Now, in this process is where we explored and discovered all of the problems that we're currently facing in the facility. But not only that, we look at how are we going to solve those problems and how are we going to look in the future. As I mentioned, these meetings take a couple weeks. There's a handful of meetings and hours and hours and hours of research and interviews to better understand every single inch of that building. So in the office area, you can follow my cursor. We're looking at approximate need of 5,400 square feet, crew quarters, 4,100, garage area, 16,500. So that brings us down here to a total of 28,800. Now, if we look at utilizing the existing building, that is 9,800, which brings us to a gross total of 19,000 square foot addition if we can utilize the existing facility in a remodel. So we had our project mission, and now we look at the individual goals. So the individual goals brought to us by the commission was to utilize as much of the existing structure as possible. Again, we want to get our most bang for our buck, so let's try to make sure that we don't leave any stones left unturned. Can we use what's there? Can the shell, can we really value engineer this solution to make sure that we're not leaving any dollars behind? Second, we want to select the most economical solution. When we look at all different solutions, whether it's new, whether it's addition, we want to evaluate each individual one and then compare them. Number 3, stay on the existing site. The reason was there is a current site that's already owned and there's an existing facility, and I think the biggest driver was the location and how it works extremely well for both fire and EMS. Number 4 is staying operational during construction. So the biggest concern when doing a fire and EMS is how do we keep everything operational? If we bulldoze the site, that creates a tremendous issue with relocating all of the equipment and the operations to a temporary site, which can be extremely problematic. So we want them to stay operational on that site. These are some challenges if you just picked one, but selecting all of these really puts the design to the test. So that is a little bit about the project, about the concerns and problems we're facing. Now let's look at the architecture. So what we're going to do is go through a quick fly through, and there'll be a 3D animation, and then we are going to go over some general preliminary design that the architect came up with. how we got here. So with the plans that were developed, there was a lot of value engineering that was done. Fairly early on, we eliminated the ground-up construction due to the cost. Overall, we reduced about 1,500 square foot from the needs assessment. We were able to keep the existing garage that is behind the facility, and we were able to reuse the entire facility. Site plan, go over the phasing aspect. So this part, as we had mentioned, is the apparatus bay. The proposed addition would be primarily apparatus bay. So the existing apparatus bay would vacate into the proposed addition as well as the EMS. So what would be left is the office space. In the existing apparatus, there would be offices and a training room built. Small day room built over here. So that would be, the proposed addition would be phase 1. The office space would be phase 2. And then the existing office space would vacate into the apparatus bay, into the other apparatus bay, and then phase 3 would be constructing the dormitories and a couple other spaces that is non-critical for the fire and EMS. The existing facility, the existing building is approximately here, and the other house is approximately here. So the entry would narrow as well as the other entry, and we would add an entry for the apparatus that would be a direct access, additional parking both in the front and back. So this is the office area. If you follow my cursor, this is the existing apparatus bay. As we had mentioned, office space would be moved in as well as a training room, and this would be the critical items for operation. So this would be phase 2, which would then leave phase 3 for the dormitories. Mechanical space would obviously need to be done during phase 2, and then the day room as well. The existing hose tower would remain, and in the proposed addition of the apparatus bay, we've got apparatus for fire and EMS, separate room for turnout gear for the fire and the EMS, with some wash decon rooms and some storage rooms with a mezzanine on top. Those are 3D renderings of the front of the facility. This is the current EMS apparatus bay, as well as this would be the current fire apparatus bays. And this would be the proposed addition. We'll briefly go over construction management. I don't want to spend too much time on it. So what it is it is a process where the construction manager will actually bid out each division of work. Really creates an opportunity for a lower overall cost. It's complete transparent. It's all public bid. Really increases the opportunity for local contractors. Keller would not actually self-perform. We would be at risk, meaning that we would take all of the liability for the project until completion. So, say for instance, similar to back in 2008, if your excavator went bankrupt and you never heard from them again, Keller would be responsible to find a solution. There's a couple different solutions, but ultimately, none of the communities would be liable. Keller would figure this out on their own. Really creates an opportunity for reduced administrative burden, which works really well with smaller communities, and then Keller would be bonding the project. This is the Town of Freedom, which was bid out in March of 2020. It was a 15,000 square foot facility, and I think we had approximately 26 bid units, and we had 99 bidders. So I'll zoom in to get a better look at this example, but this will hopefully help give a perspective on the process. So we bid out each division. So we have 4 earthwork bids, 3 asphalt bids ranging from 101 to 117,000, 3 landscaping bids, 3 fencing bids, 5 exterior concrete bids ranging from 59,000 to 90,000. So it really creates the opportunity for local contractors in getting the most competitive pricing rather than going to just a general contractor. We're going to skip over this. Budgeting. We'll briefly go over it. There is a in-depth budgeting process that we go through. So early on in the conceptual phase, this is, in the needs assessment phase, very early on when we look at industry averages, comparable projects. So we were looking at approximately 5.5 to 7.5 million. As we develop those plans, we get our estimating department involved. We look at materials. We look at each individual section. So we began at about 7.1, and there were some cost reductions, which led us to 6.0. As we started looking at opportunities such as solar and a couple other long-term beneficial solutions for the facility and really diving into those systems, the final budget that was developed is at 6.5 million. Shows you a little representation of the process. Overall timeline. Back in 2016 to 2018, the Fire and EMS Commission researched, they went on tours, they evaluated sites, they really started digging into their options. 2019 to 2020 was analyzing the needs, preliminary architectural design, and preliminary budgeting. 2020, where we're currently at, informational meetings, media, community engagement, which this presentation would be considered, and really the main focus is educating the public on the project, the process, and the next steps looking forward. In 2021, there would be a community vote on the project, which would then lead into construction documents in the summer, and we then bidding in next year of 2021 in the fall for a spring 2022 groundbreaking, which would then lead into likely a 2023 project completion due to all of the different phases. Conclusion, cost containment through value engineering. I think if this were a ground-up project, as we found out very early, it would be substantially more costly. This is really a long-term solution to a long outstanding problem. None of the problems that we evaluated were necessarily new. They have been standing for many years, and they are continuously getting worse as time goes on. This solution supports the current staffing model and any future changes when needed. Now, not only the staffing model, but looking down the road into that 5-10 year plan, this facility would accommodate the future. Now, 5 to 10 years is approximately as far as out as we want to go. We can't plan for 50 years down the road because who knows? Think of looking into a crystal ball. No one can tell what the future is, but I think from our belief, we want to be prepared for the future, and if the facility needed an addition in 30, 40, 50 years from now, that is something that will have to be done then. But for now, we have to plan for our future. Now, we're looking at a $6.5 million budget for the project. As many taxpayers, myself included, when we look at this, we want to see how it affects the taxpayers. Now, I preface all of this is that these numbers are very preliminary, and they have not been accounted by a professional firm. These numbers are just that. They are ballpark numbers to help people understand approximately where we are. These numbers were given to me to present by the Cambridge Fire and EMS Commission. So the reason they wanted me to present them is that it helps people understand approximately where we're at. So with the town of Oakland, Village of Cambridge, Village of Rockdale, and the town of Christiana, per $100,000 assessed value, which would be your home value, annual increase of approximately $50 to $60 for a 20-year period of time, since the bonding for the cost would be likely on a 20-year note. Town of Lake Mills is substantially less because the fire and EMS only covers approximately 7% of the township, which would then cost the $100,000 assessed value about $3 to $5 per year, again for that 20-year period. Again, these are preliminary. These are based on 2019 values, so when that vote happens in 2021, they would have to be updated by a professional, which would be done in the winter of 2020 to make sure that when the vote comes around, the numbers are exact and they go from preliminary, as we are today, to exact. Now we will open it up to questions and discussion.